What's up? Welcome to Kankakee Podcast, where we talk about the people and places of Kankakee County. I'm Jake LaMore, hoping you're enjoying this spooky Halloween season. And this is another re-release. This episode was originally released in October of 2022, but I thought it would be good to revisit it because, well, it is the Halloween season. And I'm still on paternity leave as well, which will be coming to an end here soon. So thank you for all the kind words and support of my wife and I and our daughter, Nora. So this episode was originally recorded in front of a live audience at the Kankakee County Museum with the Kankakee Paranormal Investigations Team, which includes Mike, Emily, Chris, and Steve. And I'm not even sure if the investigations team exists anymore, but regardless, there are so many spooky tales that they tell us in this episode. And it was actually very informative as well, because they kind of break down some of the pieces of gear that they use when they would go out and do some of their investigations. And some of the stories that they do share in this episode do include hauntings or haunted places in Kankakee. So this is a pretty fascinating episode if you've never listened to it before, or maybe you did when it was originally released and you haven't gone back to listen to it since. So it's just the perfect time to give it another listen and enjoy some spooky tales. So let's get to it. Mike, Emily, Chris, and Steve of the Kankakee Paranormal Investigations Team recorded live at the Kankakee County Museum in 2022.
I want to start off, speaking of the museum, thank you so much to Veronica Featherston and also Diana Crawley for all of their help today and being here. I mean, the museum is normally open on a Saturday, but this is a special event, and they allowed it to happen. So I really appreciate all of their support. For Halloween, I wanted to do something spooky, something on the paranormal side, and that's why right now we are sitting down with the Kankakee Paranormal Investigations Team. So let's give them a big warm welcome to Kankakee Podcast. And I guess we'll start with Steve down here. Everyone can introduce themselves so we kind of know what everyone sounds like.
Well, I'm Mike.
Or Mike. Did I say Steve? I'm so sorry. Mike.
We'll skip Mike. He's a figment of your imagination. No, my name is Mike Zenz. I lived in Kankakee County for about 14 years. I've been involved with the paranormal since I was probably 12 years old. And I couldn't be more excited to have this forum and be able to kind of talk about some of the experiences and some of the questions that people have.
Yes, absolutely. Everyone's going to be able to ask questions later on when we get into the recording. So I've got a wireless mic. I'll bring it around to you if you have any questions that you want to ask the team here today. And then going on to Steve.
I'm Steve Reinbold. I live in Bradley, Illinois. My son is also a member of our team. He couldn't make it today. I'm retired from Metro Railroad. I'm former patrolman for Park Forest Police Department. And I'm a combat veteran from Desert Storm.
Oh, thank you for your service.
Hoorah.
Yes, definitely. And then Emily.
I'm Emily Wurl. I'm also a first grade teacher, and I've always been curious about paranormal. Seen some very strange things when I was younger, so always just looking for an explanation.
Okay, and then Chris.
Hi, my name's Chris Wurl. I'm kind of the electronics guy for the team. I build a lot of the equipment that we utilize during our investigations, and I'm just happy to be here and talk to you guys about this today.
Okay, awesome. I think you could go ahead and pull that. You can pull the whole stand closer to you there. Make sure we pick you up good on the recording. Gotcha. There, Chris. Awesome. Well, thank you all for being here today. So I guess first, let's get to what is paranormal. What does it mean? What does paranormal mean?
Well, I think paranormal really means something that is really not explainable by any other means. No science can prove it. No typical anything can explain what is happening. I think that's really what drives what paranormal has become over the last 20, 30 years, which has been way more popular than it was prior to that. I'll let the guys speak on that as well.
Well, one of the things you have to remember too on paranormal is that it's something that has been in existence all the way back to Albert Einstein, even when he said that energy can't be destroyed, that it can only be repurposed. So, we have to wonder if after we pass, what happens? And that's the question that I have. And that's something that needs to be answered. And I'm going to do everything in my power to try and prove whether or not it's real or if it's not. And I want to give that opinion out to people and make them form their own decision on that.
Yeah, it's like, where does our energy go?
Exactly. It's got to go somewhere. You can't destroy it. So it has to be repurposed somewhere.
Yeah.
It has to be utilized somehow.
That brings up a really good point. So how does one learn about how did you guys personally learn about the paranormal?
Well, my brother-in-law, my brother-in-law's kind of skeptical in a way on it. He's dare I say, a Baptist preacher. So I got to watch my mouth around him, especially. I tried making a joke with him one day. I said,
it didn't work out so well.
No, it didn't. I told him, I said, I can't go to hell because Satan's got a restraining order on me. I think it's just one of those things to where people can't explain it. They have to actually have contact with and experience it and whatnot. And even then they can't explain it. So a lot of things we're out to, record things, prove to the skeptics, listen to this, explain it yourself, and let's see how much criticizing you can do now. Yeah.
Right. I mean, you can't, the proof is right there in front of you.
There, yeah.
Especially if you were there in the room while, let's say, you're using one of those handheld audio recorders,
right? EVP recorder.
And if I was with you and I'm skeptical and I see it's just you and me in the room, there's nobody else in there, but all of a sudden we're picking up this girl's voice on this audio recorder. Right. There's nobody else in this facility we're in or wherever we're at.
Sure.
I mean, how do you explain that?
Right.
I don't know.
And a lot of people, they write out, say, if I can't see it, I don't believe it. It's not there. They don't believe in, in whatnot. And I said, what, do you go to church? He's like, yeah. Do you believe in God? Yeah. Well, who do you think the Holy Ghost is? Well, I believe in him. It's like, you just told me you don't believe in ghosts. He's like the ultimate,
Yeah. I guess everyone can answer that question. I'm sorry. I'm not used to having so many people on the podcast at once, so I apologize for that.
We'll bombard you.
Bombard me.
Yeah.
But yeah, how do you guys learn about paranormal? Again, whoever
research.
Wants to go. Just research. I didn't know. Is there a college course on this? You know what I mean?
There is not, unfortunately. But if you do a Google search, you'll obviously find information, and that information you can take in, and then only thing you have to do from that point is to administer that education you get from self-taught.
Absolutely, and then you have to. I mean, you'll know when you have an experience.
Oh, it'll definitely happen.
My first experience, like I mentioned, I was 12 years old. And it was probably about a week to 8 days after my grandfather passed away. And me and him were extremely close. And he appeared before me as a 12-year-old, which I clearly did not understand what was happening. But
Did you think it was actually him? And
it looked like him.
Yeah.
It was literally him standing in front of me. And I didn't get it. So it really started my questioning about, like, what does this all mean? What does this, whole existence mean? What is the other side of me right here? And that's what really drove me to kind of start looking into that a lot further, just so I can understand the universe, really.
So what did he say? Did he say anything?
He just wanted to say goodbye. He's like, I just wanted to say goodbye. That's literally, because I never got to see him. He had died of cancer. And so the last 20 days of his life, I didn't get to see him because my parents didn't want to bring me over there. Understandably, he was in a poor state. But I never got a chance to say goodbye to him, and he never got a chance to say goodbye to me. And so he made himself known to me. There was nobody else around. It was literally just me sitting on a soccer ball on my driveway. And he just appeared out of nowhere right in front of me.
So is it like they depict in the movies? Is it like a hologram kind of cloud looking spirit, or was it literally the way you look now, flesh and bones? There you are.
No, with him, it was literally a white outline of him. It was a white outline of him. And it didn't you didn't see it come from somewhere. It didn't shoot up from the ground or down from the sky. He just like poof, right there, right in front of me. It was just like you didn't see it coming, and then it just happened. And I was scared out of my mind as a 12-year-old. Like, what am I even looking at? And he said, I just came to say goodbye.
And when that happened, was he passing away maybe like at that moment?
Oh, he had already been gone for over a week.
Okay. All right. So, because sometimes you hear stories like that where the person literally passed away at the same time and their spirit is sighted somewhere.
Right.
No,
that certainly does happen. That certainly does happen.
Okay. I guess since we're on the subject of first paranormal experiences, Steve, what's your first paranormal experience?
Oh, that's a good question. I got to think way back. The only one I can remember are my most recent, I would say, within the past few years. Me and my son were with a group. We were investigating the Iroquois cemetery. And, we were walking through there, looking at the gravestones, trying to do EVPs. And I had seen movement out of the corner of my eye. So I turned to my right to look. And on the outer edge of the cemetery there, and I kid you not, okay, everybody knows how they depict, say, Satan worshipers. They got the big hood, the black robe and whatnot. Well, that's pretty much the same thing as what the Grim Reaper looks like. Well, that's what I saw. Full figure. It took about 8 or 9 steps, and then it faded away. So I was like, well, hope that's not a sign that, hey, I'm coming for you,
This is it.
Yeah. And at the same cemetery, I had always brought flags with me. So when I find a veteran's grave, I'll put a flag at their grave for them. Well, came across one. He's a World War II veteran, said so on his headstone there, and his name was Bill. And I said, Bill, if you're here, give me a sign that you're here, And on my phone, I've got, like everybody, a lot of games on your phone and all that. Well, I got a World War II game on my phone, and it's got its own soundtrack. Well, just seconds after I said, give me a sign if you're here, Bill, Boogie Woogie Bugle Boy starts playing out of my pocket. One of the most famous, World War II songs, which happens to be on, the soundtrack of that game also. Well, there's nothing going to where I would turn the game on because I would have to put in the code on my phone and then scroll to the game and then play. So that was quite an experience there.
Okay. That's creepy.
It was very creepy.
Goosebumps. I'm getting goosebumps right now thinking about that.
I was like, okay, here's your flag. See you. Bye.
And how about you, Emily, your first paranormal experience?
Well, I've been sitting here trying to think of probably the best one would be my family and I lived in Centerville, Iowa. And this was when I was younger. My sister and I were having this heated argument. And a picture frame that had previously fallen was sitting on the fish tank. And she and I were just verbally arguing back and forth and really just brutal. And all of a sudden, this picture frame that had been resting there for at least a week flew off between us. And we looked at each other and thought well, I guess that's a sign that we should maybe stop arguing right now. Mm-hmm. And I had asked my siblings just a couple years ago, if you had to pick out of all the homes that we lived in growing up, which one was the most haunted? And not that any of us had ever seen an apparition but it just had a vibe like that house in Centerville, Iowa. and all of them named the same house.
Was anything else happen in the house besides?
We were always hearing footsteps upstairs, even if nobody was up there. I had outdoor cats that I snuck in at times, and the cat would for the most part, would just sit on this one chair. And I'll never forget, every now and then he would look up like he was seeing something that I couldn't see. I'm like, okay, time for you to go back outside and for me to freak out a little bit. So just little things like that. And, places had always given me like a vibe. Like you go in there and you just feel uncomfortable, or you feel like something's watching you.
What's your vibe here right now?
I get mostly positive energy from here.
Okay.
Like nothing eerie, but we were at a hotel one time when COVID was going on. We went down south in a real small town and stayed in a hotel that I told my husband, Chris, I go, it doesn't really creep me out. I mean, the upstairs, maybe at the top of the stairway, a little bit weird. So we had set up cameras to sleep that night, and I go, I don't think we're going to get anything. It doesn't even creep me out at all. And that was the spookiest video that we ever had, because there was nothing but like these white orbs following, like they were like tracing along our bodies when we slept. And we had some EVPs that were just spooky.
They were.
Do you want to tell them about the one that woke me up?
Well, during the middle of the night, while we were sleeping, you clearly can hear on the video, which had audio recording, someone or something stating, "Get up." And Emily's eyes popped wide open. And there were orbs floating alongside the bed at the time. And I can't explain it. I have broken down the audio, looked at the video in multiple different ways, and I cannot debunk this in anything other than maybe it was a spirit in that room at the time.
Well, now that you bring up orb, what does an orb look like? What is an orb?
It looks like a ball of energy, or almost like a dust particle flying across the camera, but yet it doesn't have a natural pattern. Most orbs that you see can be debunked.
Most of them are bugs
or dust.
Yeah.
And
sometimes like the way the light is hitting the lens of your
you can
camera.
have a lens flare, and that creates an orb effect across from that. And that's why you have to basically break down the evidence you have and make sure that it's real and it's not just a phenomenon that's happening from the video or audio recording.
Which is why it's almost important to have video and audio going at the same time.
Exactly. That's where, we bring in things like the Zoom H1 and the Olympus, and we don't buy, low quality, because low quality audio can be distorted and can create all kinds of phenomenons on there that you might believe is a paranormal event, and it's not.
Right.
So the better quality that we utilize, the better evidence we have.
So did you find out anything about the history of that?
There was.
Okay. So what was the history of that?
And the
place?
history was that there was a woman who had passed away and her spirit stayed. And that she would move objects or speak to people in the room, to include moving mirrors or other objects that were in there. And we picked that room for that reason. And that's why we chose that room, was to see if we could get any evidence in there.
Doesn't sound like you got a good night's sleep.
No, actually, we did pretty good. It wasn't bad.
Yeah, we were unaware of all of this until we woke up the next morning and reviewed the video.
Mm-hmm.
It looked like you were going to say something, Mike.
No, I was just going to add on. And, one of the most important things as we've gone through our different experiences and our experiences together is to first and foremost try to prove it untrue. We want to prove it untrue by any means necessary. And then when we can't do that anymore, then we know we have something else. Then we know we have something paranormal. But that's why it's so important, with all the equipment that Chris has either built or we've procured, to try to prove it as being something explainable. Yeah. We talk about that at one house we did. But where you want to roll with this, but
Bourbonnais house?
No, the Kankakee house.
So where's this house in Kankakee? Or what house in Kankakee was this? Was just someone's
This
private
was a friend of
residence?
ours. Yes,
Okay.
This was a friend of ours' house, and they had all kinds of literal full figure apparitions walking through the house, bothering their children. So all those kinds of things. And so we went in and did a nighttime investigation. And what we came to find out is we went through the house, is the front half of the house was newer and the back half of the house was older. And the back half of the house had old knob and tube electrical work in it. And the new part of the house had obviously none of that. Well, what you come to find out is a knob and tube electrical puts off a lot of electromagnetic frequency. And it put off enough that when we brought the Mel meter out there, which Chris could hold up there, it spiked to 300 milligauss. Now, in a normal investigation, if you're at 300 milligauss, there's literally a ghost sitting next to you like I'm looking at you. And there was nothing. There was absolutely nothing. It was disorienting in that part of the house.
So that really threw
things
off.
felt like they were kind of spinning in that house, but it wasn't anything paranormal. It was the electromagnetic frequency put off by the old knob and tube that had not been removed from the house. And so it can mess with you physiologically and mentally and make you feel things, see things, do things that you wouldn't normally do, feel, or think. So that's why I say it's so important to try and prove it wrong before you prove it right.
Do you ever have, bringing that up though, makes me think of, have you ever had someone call you and ask you to investigate a house that they're thinking of buying? You ever had that? Because that's what,
Yeah, it literally just happened. Somebody had contacted us, but we weren't able, I think we weren't able to get the scheduling or something along those. Oh no, I know what it was. She had asked if we had, they are purchasing a home and they had heard that we had done several investigations in that house. So I go looking into the house because I know which ones we've done. And it was not any house that we have ever done. It was an old now defunct paranormal group out of this area. So we really haven't done any, folks who are wanting to purchase a house and they have to get a seller and a realtor and an attorney.
Well, they have to get all those people to agree to that. I guess I was just thinking,
typically the realtor doesn't like a paranormal group coming in to say, no. Hey, you're infested.
Well, it's you guys.
Well, I guess I'm thinking about that now is just because going back to your friend's house that you were recently at, did they know about that old electricity? Did they know about that already in that part of the house?
They knew of it.
Okay.
They knew it existed in possibly some areas.
But they didn't kind of realize bringing your meter in there.
It was everywhere. I mean, that knob and tube was everywhere in the walls. And it wasn't just hanging down where you can see it. It was literally in between the walls and the outside of the house. So you would only know that if you're able to take some of this equipment like the Mel meter and you're checking all different areas of the house, the floors, all the walls, ceilings, if you can get to them. And that's how we kind of discovered where we saw, standing on the balcony over the stairway, and it just went, like I said, the Mel meter just went through the roof.
So there was nothing actually.
And then zeroed out. Wow. I'm like, that's not supposed to do that.
So there was nothing paranormal then at the house. It was literally just this electricity.
It's It's electromagnetic frequency can really have an impact on the human body.
Oh yeah.
And the human mind.
Right. Because we have electricity inside of us, right?
We absolutely do.
Yeah.
So it gets to the point to where it can cause hallucinations, depression, stressing out, and people think, oh my God, my house is haunted. Well, no, it's not, because you got all this old electrical stuff behind the walls and everything else emitting this, and that's what's causing it. So we can debunk it that way too.
Okay. You're going to be getting lots of phone calls now, I imagine, from some people.
We're okay with that.
Sure.
You're like, hey, could you bring that, what do you call it again? That mellometer over? And
who's Mel? I don't know who that Mel guy is you were talking about, but bring him.
Yeah. Okay, let's talk about equipment then, since we're on the subject.
Well, let's talk about the Mel meter then.
Okay, we'll start with that.
Actually, the Mel meter was developed by an individual that his daughter had passed away. And he wanted to find a way to communicate with her. And so he started developing equipment such as this that can detect anything from the most minute amount of electrical occurrence all the way to, you can pick up temperature on this. You can have a laser on the back that can also detect anything that breaks that. And the fact that you can also have the environment affect it and determine with the electrical and audio frequencies that are coming from it, you can detect those at even a small amount. So just having that ability helps tremendously, but then you have to analyze the data because, again, false positives can create people to have different things that experiences that aren't good.
And that is one of the pieces of equipment you see in Ghostbusters, correct?
Wow.
I mean, they may have Hollywoodized it a little
I'm
bit.
sure they did.
They do utilize all the stuff that's on this table.
We're not walking around with proton packs. I'll just say that.
Oh man,
I know. I wish we could. I really do. I mean, that'd be pretty killer to walk in with a proton pack.
they really would.
They
be,
got
yeah.
paid. They got paid.
I mean,
too.
But with the millimeter, they also had spin-offs from it. People took the technology and either made it better or utilized different means of doing it. Like the Eddy. The Eddy is pretty much the same thing. It's a millimeter. It can detect footprints or footsteps, any anomalies, temperature, and it can record it. So you can also take that data and see through the timeline when an occurrence happened.
So if it's recording a footstep, is that it's detecting motion, right?
Seismic.
Seismic.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
any measurement, if you watch the bar at the bottom, you'll see that there's movement.
Okay.
And for those listening, it lit up.
Right, it lit up. Yeah, I did see it light up.
Nice.
I don't even know if some people from our audience can see it, or we can we'll demonstrate all of that to you when we're done with the recording. But,
and it also detects the temperature change. So if it's either hot or cold, which cold is normally an indication that something has changed in the environment rapidly.
we
and
saw
it'll
that in
pick it up.
Sixth Sense.
Yes, exactly.
Right.
And it can pick
Seen
that
that
up
movie, yeah.
as such.
Yeah.
So, and by the fact that I can put a memory card in, record it, and see the date and timeline of when the event happened, and then I can go back and look at some of the video equipment. Because we do have so much video equipment, it takes hours upon hours to review.
Oh, sure.
And I mean,
Especially if you're recording like 8 hours overnight
Exactly.
or something.
over
like
5-6 cameras,
Right.
it would be a massive undertaking to go through all of it.
Your eyes
So-
start glazing over.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you're literally looking for 4 minutes of actual action in 40 hours worth
Yes.
of video.
Yeah.
So it's daunting, but that's why we do what we do, because we love to find the things that are not explainable. I mean, we used a lot of this equipment right here at the museum,
Yes.
at the schoolhouse, which was probably, in my estimation, my favorite investigation. I mean, we had such incredible responses. That schoolhouse,
That was insane.
it was.
Well, we can
unbelievable.
definitely get into that now then, because I loved what you were telling me over the phone when we were, setting up this recording. The schoolhouse seemed to be the most active that you found that day 2 or 3 years ago.
Yeah.
So what happened at the schoolhouse?
What didn't?
Yeah, right. It might be easier to tell you what didn't know. We had obviously investigated this building. We went into the small home, and then we went into the schoolhouse, and we just wanted to run a ghost box session. Now, if you don't know what a ghost box session is, this is our device. It runs AM or FM channels. It scrolls through the channels at a very fast rate, either forwards or backwards. And what it will do is that's it. You will get an entity that may come through that scrolling of the channels, and it uses that energy to be able to speak through it.
So it uses radio frequencies.
It
to
uses
talk.
radio frequency.
A lot of white noise.
So we just went in just to kind of see what we see. And we had a couple voices come through. And I said, well, you know what? I'm going to go up to the front of the class and I'm going to hold class. Let's see who we really get. So I go up to the front of the classroom, grab the pointer, because they had a pointer sitting there on the chalkboard, and they had a giant map of the United States. And I said, all right, boys and girls, we're in class. And it's literally just us, our team, and some of the folks here from the museum. And I said, I'm going to point to something, and I want you to tell me what it is. And so I took the pointer, and I pointed it at the map at one of the states. Well, we probably within, 30, 45 seconds?
Yeah.
You heard Texas come through that S-box. Mm-hmm. I have been pointing at Texas. There's no reason that I can think of that specific word would come through there while I'm pointing with a pointer and never saying the name Texas. But I'm pointing at it on the map. And so once we had that response, and it was an intelligent response, then we repeated this with multiple different states. And then I drew on the chalkboard the letter C, the letter A, the letter T. And they were responding with C, A, T. But I couldn't get them to say the word cat. For whatever reason, they wouldn't say the word cat, but they did say the letters.
Maybe they were kindergartners.
They could have been kindergartners.
Dog lovers.
And I thought that until I went to the bookshelf and I pulled a random book out of the bookshelf. And it was Catcher in the Rye. And so I pulled the book out and I said, okay, boys and girls, you know this book. You've read it before. What is the name of this book? Catcher in the... And I just stopped. I just let it go. And it took about a minute, but then you heard Rye come through the box. And I'm like, okay, well, that's everything I need to know. And this went on for half an hour.
Time. And we had an entire class of kids.
There was an entire class
spirits,
of kids.
Ghosts.
How did you know there was an entire class, though?
Because they were different different modulations of voice.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them were deeper tone. Others were very lighter tone.
Which would make sense because in a schoolhouse back at that time, you had the teacher would be teaching
multiple grades.
Right. Kindergarten through 8th or whatever it was, or high school. They were all sitting there.
They were all in class, and they were wanting to learn.
Some were saying their names.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was.
Did you ask their names and they said their names, or did they just go into?
Oh no! We specifically asked names. We always ask names because we want to build that personal bond with them.
Yeah.
So that they feel comfortable talking to us.
Did any of those names match records of?
No.
You can't remember. Yeah.
I don't think any of them matched records that we were able to find.
Yeah.
Because it was literally just a first name, right?
Sure.
Like you just hear Aaron. Okay.
But there were a ton of intelligent responses. He would ask a question, they would literally answer him. Mm-hmm. He would ask another, kid, and question, he'd answer him. And this went on for like you were saying, a good half hour. So it was like a whole classroom full of kids that were still there in the old schoolhouse.
So I imagine almost any investigation you do you kind of do this same thing where you test, you talk to somebody? Do you ask them a question or whatever? Or you say, "Hey, honey, I'm home," or
Well, you try to get a response. First, you want to introduce yourself, and you want to make it comfortable. You don't want to go in and create. If there is something there, you don't want to create that animosity that could be lingering after you leave.
And Mike, you gave me a great example of that over the phone too. I think you were doing an investigation in Watsika.
The Roth House. Yeah. We had that one didn't turn out quite the way we wanted it to.
Well, so to give the backstory on the Roth House for those that don't know the story of the Roth House.
We did it before Ghost Brothers.
Right. Yeah. So before we started this team, we were part of another team. And we went to the Roth House because it's one of the most haunted houses in America. It's been on the Travel Channel several times. Yeah. And so we brought our crew in, and we were in there, and, there's a lot of things happening in that place. But we had gone down into the basement, which is my favorite place to go. Yeah. And there's this side basement room. You have to go down the stairs, and then you're in this basement, and then you have to go down this little hallway where all their HVAC is. And then there's another separate downstairs, dungeon room. That's the only way I can explain it. And we sat at that table We had a candle on the table. We had a ghost box on the table. We had a K2 meter. And we were just trying to ask questions. Well, one of the folks that we were with decided they wanted to do some provocation of whatever may or may not be around us. I never recommend provocation.
No.
Which is
provoking.
Okay.
You're poking the ghost, right?
Okay.
You're poking the ghost.
Trying to piss them off.
Yeah. So basically. And so that person continued to do that.
You have to remember too, the Roth House is the first recorded case of a possession in Illinois.
Documented
Case.
Yeah.
So this is not just leftover energy.
No.
So
it's there.
Yeah,
the
exactly.
provocation's bad. This
Yeah.
is not
And
Isn't that the house you and I got that really good
Yeah,
EVP?
it's in the basement.
It's like, who's down here?
It was pretty creepy.
It was pretty creepy.
And that was off the Olympus recorder. So it's not.
Wow.
You know,
So
When you-
this person's provoking.
He's provoking and provoking and provoking and provoking. We're asking him to try to not do that, and it continued. And next thing you know, you're out of the corner, which is just 4 concrete walls around us, right? Out of the corner, you hear blank you. Now I'll let you fill in the blank. But you know, it was an expletive, and this thing was loud. Loud. I mean, this is as clear as I'm talking to you. It came out of the corner of the room where there was nothing but like sand on the floor and concrete walls meeting. And you're like, no, time to go.
Yeah, you got a house that has a history of possession.
Mm-hmm.
See you later.
No, yeah,
Have a great day.
we are never been about provoking any entity in any place we've ever been to. That's, in my estimation, it's irresponsible to do that.
They can do a lot to you, but what are you going to do? Kill them?
Right, they're already dead.
Right.
Yeah. But getting back to the museum, you know, you had connections in the schoolhouse, but what about the small house? Was there anything there in the small house?
That was quiet.
Well, it was kind of quiet, but that was actually my favorite part of the investigation because we used our SLS camera.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
And that uses the same technology that an Xbox uses to detect a body. And so
3D mapping.
Right. So when somebody's standing in front of it, it maps out the figure's shape.
Mm-hmm.
And we had several times where we were not pointing at anything and it indicated that there was a figure there. And it seemed to interact upstairs. It went from the bed, which this figure looked like it was laying down, and we would say, "Oh, can you go over to the chair?" And we witnessed this stick figure basically go over to the chair and sit down on command.
The rocket.
That was
really cool.
Oh man.
Yeah.
I would leave at that point.
Yeah.
I would just be a scaredy cat, be like, okay, I'm out.
Because
So we're definitely in the doorway, ready to
And we were
You know,
trying to see what other tricks we could get it to do. Oh yeah, well, walk over there and walk to the rocker.
Do a
But
handstand.
for the most part, it liked to hang out on the bed or go to the chair. But
Yeah,
it definitely
simple
seemed
things.
to be an intelligent
response.
Yes.
Right. And it didn't charge you, so that's huge.
Yeah.
Didn't get tired of your game.
But we didn't really get that feeling of anything evil here.
No.
It was
It didn't.
more
Yeah, it didn't.
of
Other
residual
than
or
that-
history that's been attached to things that are obviously in a museum.
Other than
Right.
that pissed off one in the basement.
Yeah.
The pissed off one in the basement that was like, okay, you're done. You're done asking me questions is what he said. I said, all right, we're gonna move out of this room and go back upstairs.
Yeah.
Let's get to some of the other equipment that we have in front of us right now.
This one's actually pretty interesting. This one it emits a laser grid onto a wall, and obviously it's too light in here to see.
Mm-hmm.
But it also it's called the GS2. It can detect temperature changes and movement that breaks the grid. And when it breaks that grid, it'll then show up on the screen, and you can see where it's broken through the grid. So if an object such as a shadow or any type of energy were to pass through it and have a spike in temperature change, then it would record that information. And then you can go back and then see some of the stuff that happens. So with this device, this is something nice to have on a stand just in the middle of a room So you can try and map across some of the objects that go in. And as you can see, as I put my hand up there, you can see that it showed my hand breaking the grid. Well, it doesn't do any good once you move it. But it has to be a stationary object, though. So once it maps off that grid through the laser, you can then utilize it to see if anything's gone past it.
And some of that stuff, it looks like it's got lights on the top of it, or
That's correct. This is called a REM pod. The REM pod is meant to try to have, it emits a frequency from it. So that frequency comes from the antenna. And then the idea behind that is any type of movement that has electrical charge, such as a human being or anything else, were to go past it, it would then light up.
Okay.
This one also detects temperature also. But as you can see, you got to get pretty close. Yeah, you can adjust that range to go a little wider, but the idea is try to get something to go past it. You want it as close as you can get it so you don't have an outside interference. So
And you can use that per se too, see if you have an intelligent spirit or entity per se.
Yep.
You can have that, say, in the middle of the floor, desktop, whatever, and say, if you're still here in the room with us, can you touch the REM pod? And when it touches the REM pod, they'll light up.
Yeah. It's good for yes and no.
That's
questions.
when you know
Yes.
if you've got something here or not, by asking questions and see if it makes it light up or not. And sometimes those things will go berserk.
Right. And so we have, Chris has a variety of different types of REM pod.
I do.
Yeah, I see other ones
I
that
have
look
one that
similar
can pick up
to
static
it there.
electricity.
Yep.
That's what this one does. I didn't put a battery in it yet, but that one there, anything comes near the wire, it'll pick up static electricity. So basically, I just took a circuit board and I then utilized technology and.
Oh, that's something you made.
Yeah, that's something I
Okay.
made. That's one of them that I made. Some of the things else I've made is the same exact thing. It picks up as a REM pod does. So this one will just change colors when it detects it. And then once it detects it, it'll stay either red or green once it's neutralized. So we also do believe that we can attract some of these spirits by electromagnetic. So if you were to take things as earth magnets and then were to spin them in a rapid recession, you then emit a frequency from that. And that's what an EMP pump does. So by utilizing that, you're then creating your own frequency, and that you should be able to attract some sort of spirit or energy to it. The idea behind spirits is to try to have them give as less effort as possible. So you want to provide them with the doorway to come to you.
Right. Plus, they're not taking your energy.
Exactly.
They're taking it from that.
Where
It's like a
this-
buffet.
Yeah. Here's the smorgasbord.
Right. And sometimes
Come
they'll
have
do
it.
that. I mean, you could be in the middle of investigation, asking them to do something or, give you a sign, that kind of a deal. And they will take energy from you. You can be in there, like I said, doing it, and all of a sudden you start feeling exhausted.
Or batteries just drain.
And
Suddenly,
your
random
batteries will drain
go completely dead.
like that.
And it'll be
You
a
know.
brand new battery.
It's
brand new.
Just goes.
Just put it in.
Yep.
Just like today, I
Right.
put
So
something in today.
they can't do anything without energy. They thrive on that. They feed on
Right.
that.
Yeah, I think the
Yeah.
Rialto Theater drained 3 cameras.
3 cameras.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
Yeah.
What did you find there? I can only imagine what you found at the Rialto. There must have been.
That one had a spooky vibe now. I didn't personally experience too much there at the
You mean-
Rialto other
You
than
mean
just
Majestic?
that's what I meant.
The
Not
Majestic.
Rialto.
Yeah.
The Majestic. I'm
I was
sorry.
like,
Wrong theater.
I don't remember
Wrong
the
theater.
Rialto.
I would imagine both the Majestic and the Rialto
Oh, yeah.
have
No.
lots going on there.
Majestic
Yeah.
was
Yeah, the
cold.
Majestic drained 3
That was
batteries
crazy.
in a couple hours.
in a couple hours, and
Something about the
they
chairs.
literally it started right from the jump of that investigation.
Yeah.
We walked into what would be the theater area, walked up the little ramp to go to the main floor, and we're standing there along that half wall, just kind of listening and looking. Next thing you know, it's like a high chair, literally like a bar chair, up on the 3rd floor that starts like moving back and forth, and you heard like something like was sitting in the chair and like got out of it quickly and ran. And so you hear this ba-da-da-da-doom, and we all like shot our eyes up because there's nobody else in the building.
Right.
And so, of course, the first thing we want to do is make sure there isn't anybody or anything, animal or something like that, So we kind of
we don't want to claim something that didn't happen.
Right.
Yeah.
And that was right when we first got there.
Right when we first got there.
It was like, welcome.
This is
They're like, oh, someone's here. I got to get out of
Talking
here.
about the stacking.
Yeah. So when I got I went up to the third floor to kind of check out the chairs, see if anything fell over. And as I'm checking everything out, I'm like, all right, well, everything looks good up here. So I go to the edge of the balcony to look down and tell everybody everything's good up here. And all the chairs that were like scattered on the floor were now stacked.
They stacked up.
The chairs that were in the balcony?
No, the chairs on the floor, on the main floor.
And they weren't
so
like
I'm
that
looking
before.
down. No,
That's
they were
people
scattered.
sit when they watch a play and all that. They're all in rows and all that.
They're all in rows.
Well, next thing you know, we looked again. There must have been 12 chairs stacked one on top of each other vertically.
Yeah, like banquet chairs, right? And they're just scattered. And next thing you know, they're all in like 3 stacks of 3 or 3 stacks of 4. I'm sorry.
Right. Yeah.
And it was just. I'm looking at it and I'm like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Mama, I don't remember those chairs being stacked like this when I walked right past them.
Yeah, but
And there was no noise. Nothing would have sparked me to believe.
Didn't hear it.
No. It was like they just like magically just went from scattered to stacked with no noise. It was a crazy. I'm like, man, this is gonna be a long night.
That dressing room we had gone into. We had gone into the dressing room when they used to do the plays and when they used to have so-called stars or whatever.
Right.
And you go into a dressing room, all of a sudden it's like you just walked into a meat locker. Then you walk out of the dressing room and you just got normal temperature.
Yeah.
So it's like you walk in there and it's that cold. You've got a presence. And
yeah. I mean, you're talking about a 40-degree temperature difference.
Yeah.
It was that much of a difference?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's
it's not always a good thing either.
That's when I started getting affected. And when I got affected, it was in my lower back. And my lower back.
Do you feel pain or something? Or
it was like if somebody had been jumping on my back for an hour. That's the kind of like achiness, pain, like shooting pain. It kind of felt like. Yeah. And so, Chris, I think you had the
flare.
You had the flare.
Yeah.
And the flare kind of measures temperature in a space.
Infrared.
And my lower back was on fire. And I had, I had not had any issues the entire night.
You had to sit down. You couldn't.
Yeah, I had to sit down. I mean, I couldn't get up and walk around because like it was really hurting.
And what's really freaky is when you got an EVP going and they know your name.
Yeah,
they knew your names.
They knew my name,
even though had you guys addressed yourselves that night? I mean, you might have, right?
In certain areas we did, but you never know. The thing is, you never know who you're talking to.
Right.
Right.
Not all the time, unless they tell you. Right?
Unless they tell you.
Did you get any names that night?
I don't remember.
You can get a bad spirit compared to a normal, ghost or whatnot. You could even get demons.
Yeah.
Which the Bourbonnais house.
Right. The Bourbonnais
house.
We got to hear about this Bourbonnais house now.
I was with my son and one time we were walking around doing the investigation with the EVP going. And I think Cody asked something, is there anybody here that you know? Meaning, people that lived in the house or whatever. Well, EVP recorder came up and it said my first name. So Cody kind of looks at me like, Dad, you're in big trouble, And what's really wild is we had gone to New Orleans and we did an investigation there where they had the old slave house, behind it and everything. And my son asked that question again, is there anybody here that you know? And now this is what New Orleans is, how many? 700 miles away, whatever. It said my full name.
Without an introduction.
Right. So Cody's like, Dad, you are so screwed. That kind
we need
of
to stay away from this guy.
But
you're
700 miles away, and yet whatever was there knew my full name.
Sorry, guys, the recording's over.
Yeah, right.
Look at the time.
Yeah. What's taking that bus so long,
It's usually here, buddy.
Yeah.
That was crazy.
Now, typically we do introduce ourselves as we come in.
Sure.
But again, you don't know who you're talking to, how many people you're talking to,
or what you're talking
what you're talking to.
Yeah.
So I mean, I don't think I had introduced my name into this during that investigation. Not that I recall, anyway.
Right.
But then obviously it knew who I was.
A lot of times they'll be there and they're just standing there listening, watching you and listening. You know, sometimes they don't even want to talk to you at all whatsoever. They'd rather we weren't even there.
Correct.
You know, they just want to be left alone.
And they'll let you know they don't want
Yeah.
you there.
Are there any other famous, well-known establishments in the area that you have investigated, that you have, evidence from or stories from?
Well known in this area, I don't know that there's. Most of the others have been either residential or our own personal experiences. I've been to Bachelor's Grove, and I'm sure that.
Oh yeah.
They've all been to several other places as well, but I think the Majestic was probably one of the biggest ones, and here. And then, of course, COVID lockdowns kind of happened, and that kind of shut off the pipeline for
Nobody
us.
really
to
wanted
be able
us
to
in
go
our
to-
homes, because of COVID, obviously.
Yes.
So.
Understandably,
And
but
completely understandable.
Yeah.
I didn't want to take that risk either. So
Right. Yeah.
so the pickings have been thin since COVID came around.
Yeah, that screwed everything.
However, because of Jake, I've got like 3 messages to answer.
Oh, that's right. Did you get a hold of Lizzie?
I did get a hold of Lizzie. I'm
Yeah.
going to get a hold of her, but I also had some other folks who have reached out to us that want us to come,
Okay.
investigate their homes.
All right. There we
or
go.
businesses. So,
Okay.
So
Cool.
there'll be some additional investigations upcoming.
Okay. That's great. It's always, more stories and all that stuff. And have you guys ever been to City Tavern? Because I know that's another one that has had stories.
No.
In the past. You haven't investigated
we
City
have
Tavern.
not investigated that one yet.
Okay.
That was one of them I was, before COVID, wanted to go in there and see, just because of the history.
Yes.
So the history from there is phenomenal.
Right.
So,
Yeah. It's just one of the places I've heard before that is apparently haunted because, multiple investigations have happened at the Majestic, and each one has the stories all kind of match up with the ones you just told me.
Right.
Very similar to that.
Right. Lady Remington walking along the upper balcony. And, although I don't remember, we put a camera up on that upper balcony to try and catch her, but we never caught any video of her.
Or did you catch any video in general?
I think we did get some video, but I don't think it was anything.
we had the SLS. On
Yeah,
it.
the
We had
SLS.
a lot of orb activity, but not.
Nothing like
It was
like an
amazing.
apparition appearing in front
It
of
drained
you.
a lot of battery juice very quickly.
ton.
And I don't recommend the basement.
No.
I don't either.
I don't recommend the basement. I did
10
not
out of 10. Do not
feel
recommend.
or see anything, but I didn't want to stay in there. So that's enough for me to go, I'm good.
It's always the basement, as you said, Mike.
Yeah.
There's a reason why I was afraid of the
Basements and
basement as a kid. Oh, yeah, the attics, too.
Basements and attics.
Edwin's supposed to be a big place that we
Oh,
went
Edwin's
to.
in Piatone.
Yeah.
Yes.
When
They
Al
had
Al Capone's old.
Right.
They had a bathroom in the basement of the Majestic. You remember the bathroom?
Oh, yeah.
So this old bathroom was being renovated down in the basement. So supposedly that was a hot spot for things happening, and you could feel the temperature change in that area. You felt uncomfortable in that bathroom area, and it wasn't a very big area. It was like 5 foot, or like 6 feet by 6 feet, small bathroom. But for whatever reason, whatever was down there, that was their house. And
Was it the place of movement?
did not want you there.
Well, it was, during renovations, they say is when spirits are most active. Is that true?
You're
Usually?
disrupting their environments.
Yeah. So usually that's when you'll get. Steve, you mentioned the place of moments.
There's a place of moments. Used to be like the Playhouse or whatever, on the main drag. And I guess it dates back to like early 1900s to where they used to do vaudeville there and everything. And when we were there, they're trying to rehab it so that the high school kids could go there and have plays there and everything. And I don't know if that was with this group or with the other one.
That was the other one.
Okay. And we had gone in there and we walked in, it opens up to where all the seating is and then, the stage and everything. And my son starts seeing shadow figures over here moving and then some over there moving and all that. And a lot of times the spirits will stay because, they don't want to go anywhere else. And some actually don't even know they're dead. How do you know you're that.
Well, you've seen
You know
The
what I mean?
Sixth Sense.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, right.
You know,
Bringing that
you
up
know,
again.
You haven't
Sixth
gone
Sense
to
of
work
thought
in,
is alive.
you haven't gone to work in
It's
100 years, you know. It's like,
Right.
But anyway, we went down into one of the lower areas, and when they were down there rehabbing, they were putting new door frames in and whatnot. Well, the one door that they were going to put in there was leaning against the wall, and next to that was the frame that was going to go around it. And my son said, "Man, it got really cold over here." So I walked over, and sure enough, I mean, it was very cold in that doorway area next to all this stuff. And Cody's like, "Who are you?" Trying to pick up something on the EVP. Who are you? Can you drop something or move something? So we know that we're just not talking to nothing. All of a sudden, the wooden door frame that they're going to put in there, it was leaning against the wall. It starts bouncing off and on the wall, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And he looked at me wide-eyed, and I looked at him, and almost felt like one of those cartoon characters where you're running, but you're not going nowhere, kind of a thing.
Right, I was going to say, did you ever get so scared you just
right? Yeah,
completely out of the situation?
Yeah, there were a couple times that I actually left the Watsika house. I'm like, I gotta go outside. I gotta go outside. I gotta get out of this this energy space that I'm in. It's really dark. I'm going outside, and you have to do that on these investigations because if you don't reset yourself through that, you open yourself up to something you don't understand, and you could open yourself up to something that could significantly impact you, not from a behavioral standpoint, but physiologically.
Your heart starts going
sickness,
weird,
all kinds of different things. So you have to just be really well aware of the environment that you're in and take time to step out of it and reset as much as you want to just be in that space and just kind of go. You have to do that. You have to step back and out so that you can reset to get your mind right, recenter, refocus. You're good. Okay, now we move forward.
And speaking of moving forward, does anyone have any questions at this time that you want to ask the investigations team by chance? No questions?
They're all pale.
Okay.
I wonder where the old Oddfellows building was.
The Oddfellows building, you said?
Like the Oddfellows?
Yeah, because in Watsika, honestly, part of the reason why there's activity is because he was an Oddfellow. And he did rituals, and now there's stuff there. I think he probably even caused what happened to both of the girls.
Right.
Yeah. I've heard that story.
That too,
and I have heard of the Oddfellows and some of the
Wherever it is, that would be active in City Tavern.
Yeah, City Tavern is on our very, very short list.
And I mean that in a good way.
Right. Yes. Absolutely. Any other questions?
We answered it all.
We answered. I mean, there's so many things we could continue to talk about. I know we could go on for another hour, but you brought your gear. Were you wanting to do some more investigating today?
I mean, we certainly can go back into the schoolhouse.
Go to the schoolhouse and see if
check in with the kids.
Right, everyone's invited to come with us to see if
see what we see.
See if class is in session today.
Right.
You will be graded.
I hope I don't fail this.
Right,
Sorry, you're going to detention.
Stand in the corner with that cone on
Well,
your head.
the dunce. They got the dunce hat in there. Mike, Steve, Emily, Chris, Kankakee Paranormal Investigations Team. Thank you all so much.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
It's been a blast.
Yeah, and thank you once again to the Kankakee County Museum for letting us do this live episode here, and thank you to all of you who came out as well. It's great to see Bree and Brenda.
Absolutely.
And some new faces as well that I've yet to meet. So
thank you for taking the interest.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I guess now we'll head over to the schoolhouse and see what happens.
Yeah.
Recess.
Yeah, definitely.
Awesome.
So thank you all again for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Alrighty.
And now you're probably wondering, well, I wonder what happened in that investigation. Did they find anything in the Taylor one-room schoolhouse? Well, you can find out for yourself. I actually took video of the whole entire investigation. You can view that video now on the Kankakee Podcast YouTube, or actually on our Facebook page as well. If you just go to facebook.com/Kankakee Podcast, you'll find the video there. So a special thank you once again to the Kankakee County Paranormal Investigations Team, and also to the Kankakee County Museum for helping make that special live episode of Kankakee Podcast possible. That concludes this special re-release of episode 67 of Kankakee Podcast from October 2022. I'm Jake LaMore. Thank you so much for listening. Shout out to Stephanie Vanderweide for supporting the show each month through Patreon. If you want your name announced on a future episode, you can sign up at patreon.com/Kankakee Podcast. Special thanks to our sponsors, Chicago Dough Company, Noble Dairy Queen Stores, Frank's Appliance Center and Sleep Source, Pigosh Engineering, King Music, Little Me Studio, Taco John's, D. Westfall Jewelers, and Edward Jones Financial Advisor, Adam Elroy. Kankakee Podcast is produced by the fine team at Pathfinder, a full-service marketing agency in downtown Kankakee. You can learn more at yourpathfinder.io. Our theme song is by Lupe Carroll. Have yourself a happy Halloween.
This river